Hey guys, welcome back to the shop. And in last video, we diagnosed two bad stators. Well, I mean, at least on the Rhino, the stator was still reading correctly, but all the connections were really badly burnt. But on this guy, the pickup coil wasn't giving us any kind of reading. So I went ahead and I ordered them, and they actually came in pretty quickly. I got the stator for this guy right on the seat over here. I purchased it from RM Stator. I am not sponsored by them by any means. However, they do have a pretty good stator. It comes with a 2-year warranty. Look them up. They also carry a few other things, because while I was at it and while I was on their website, I'm not sure if you guys ever noticed this while I was working on it, but I got this mess of wires for the electric starter because the starter solenoid failed years ago and I just never repaired it. I didn't want to buy the OEM one because it's really expensive, but I purchased one from them for like 35 bucks. So I'm going to be installing that as well. But without further ado, let's start ripping and tearing into this so we can get a stator that works in that engine. Step one, let's start by removing this exhaust. So we're going to just pull on all of these springs. That one looks like it's going to stay there. And some of these are quite stiff, so be careful with that. Ow. Just like that. So now we need to remove the manual recoil. Oh, those have been in there for quite some time, apparently. All right, I guess I'm going to be cracking those free by hand. Oh yeah, that's tight. That's better. Next, we're going to remove this big nut in here, which is I'm using a 15/16, more than likely metric, but I don't have a short socket that will fit. And I might have to hold this. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that, but there you go. My impact is strong enough. It has the power. Then we're going to remove the housing for the manual recoil assembly, and these are 5mm Allens, which are apparently causing me some grief. I'm going to have to put a bar here to stop them from turning. So I have a bar on the opposite side of the engine over here in the clutch, because this is all one rotating assembly, so that's going to stop the entire engine from spinning over, and I should be able to crack these free. Oh, there you go. All right. After that's all been removed, now we can install our puller. By the way, this puller, guys, is just a harmonic balance puller. I picked this one up at Princess Auto. I'll see if I can put a link in the description. See if I can kind of point you in the right direction. And of course, I like to put a little bit of Seas of the Never on the thread so nothing binds up and it rotates nice and freely. Yeah, that's right, you heard me say it, Seas of the Never. I mean, I am a big Metallica fan. I just come back from a concert not too long ago. Wicked show, by the way. So we're gonna put some bolts in here. And this is why I keep bolts from old projects, because clearly the bolts that come with the machine would be too short. And the kit does not come with metric bolts. So, or at least none that fit this application. So I had some extra hardware from another project. I don't even know where these come from. I don't know why I would have Allen head bolts this long, but I'm quite happy I have them. After you have your bolts set up and the puller is pretty square, you want to make sure you have these bolts in properly. Like, make sure you have more than, let's say, just 2 threads. Go in quite a ways, because you'll notice this is quite stiff. Like, this is on there pretty tight. So also keep in mind, you don't want to strike this because this has magnets inside, you'll see in a minute, but you don't want to strike this with a hammer. So I like to take this off just by hand. And I mean, in here, in this application, it's not like I can put a power tool anyways, but this is a 19 mil, so I'm just going to go by hand and just start to slowly apply pressure. And you'll see this pop. You can see how tight this is because it's destroying my washers. I might have to double that up here. Okay, so I'm going to back this off. I'm going to double up on my washers because that's clearly not going to cut it. And we'll try that one more time. So I've got double washers on there. Let's hope that this is going to do it. It's still pulling quite hard. I can still see the washers wanting to bend through here. So there is another thing you can do, and that is to apply just a little bit of heat around here, and that's going to hopefully allow the flywheel to expand while the shaft stays kind of cold and the size it is. So let's go get the torch, see if that helps any, because otherwise I gotta keep doubling up on my washers. I'm gonna have a stack of washers like this. Now, one thing I don't like about doing this is there's wires back here. I mean, clearly it's the stator that's damaged, but I don't like to heat things up too much because there are seals and a whole bunch of other stuff back here. So let's just apply a little bit and see what happens. A little bit more pressure. Come on, baby. Oh, that's a crazy amount of pressure, guys. Oh, I'm getting nervous. I'm getting nervous. Sometimes these are really difficult to pull, and this one is no exception. Come on. There she goes. Woo! That was hopefully eventful for both of us, because that came out like a rocket. Woo! Actually, and you can even see on my tool here, don't want to touch anything, but you can see in the tool where it started to actually kind of mushroom the end. So, wow, we're going to put this aside, we're going to let it cool, but like I was saying, inside here, these are all magnets. These are protected in this case, but yeah. And then we have the stator down inside. Let's grab the camera and show you what you have. And here is the OEM stator. So, as you can tell, it's seen, well, I mean, it looks like it's okay, but I don't know if you see it in the camera, but there's a hairline crack in the, like in a sealing glue here, I guess you'd want to call it, or a sealant. There's a crack there. Actually, there's quite a few cracks. So I think there's one down below here. I don't know if this has any effect on the power generation of the stator, or maybe just an indication of picking up heat over it, over multiple uses, right? But another thing I wanted to point out while I'm in here is the importance of using a proper tool, because if you're not using a proper tool, you can mushroom out the shaft and then you'd never be able to get that nut back on, and that would be a bad day. So now, let's break these free, and then we should be okay. But you can see what I was fighting against, right? So imagine you got some magnets holding on here, so you got the retention there, plus this is pressed on with a keyway. Yeah, makes for a lot of fun. The screws holding the stator in place are a number 3 Phillips, and I can't stress that enough. It's a number 3. Don't use a number 2 or anything else, because if you try, what'll happen is you will strip that screw, and then you're going to be in a world of hurt. It's going to be really difficult to remove. I'm using a small ratchet because sometimes these can be really tight to remove, because they're usually Loctited in place with some kind of thread locker. So as you can tell, even with that extra leverage, you heard the crack. It's it would have been really difficult with a regular screwdriver. So I'm going to crack all of these out and then grab my screwdriver after. Pull these out. And then right in the corner we have one more sensor that we need to remove. So that's just two regular Phillips, which are number 2s as well, not the large ones, but again, that might be a little bit tight. I'm going to do the same on this one, where I'm going to pull it out. Oh, I got to get the right bit first. But I'm going to pull it out using my little ratchet. Oh boy, those are extremely tight and they don't want to move. I'm worried I'm going to strip them. So I'm going to use the flame trick. I'm going to put a little bit of heat around here. I might end up burning this wire though, which not a huge deal. But before we do that, let's make sure that we can't take it out properly with the regular screwdriver, because there's nothing worse than burning wires. So the ones I'm struggling with at the moment, guys, I moved the camera because you couldn't see it, are these two little guys. And I have an idea here. I got lucky. If you guys watched the V-Star video on the carburetor, I couldn't get 2 of these Phillips screws out. I managed to get lucky by kind of rattling them loose with my impact gun here. So if I can get on there nice and square, put a lot of pressure, make sure I'm going the right way here, I might be able to just rattle them enough to get it free. I'm just going to go nice and slow at first here. I don't want to strip it. I really don't want to. That one doesn't look like it wants to at all. Oh, I got lucky on that one. Woo! Thank you. Now let's see. There is one more trick that I have up my sleeve, and that is to put a little bit of valve grinding compound on the tip of the screw, and it prevents it from slipping. Let's go do that. And in a second you're going to hear my heater come on because it is a little bit cool outside. Alright, here we go. Come on, baby. Oh no. And that is totally stripped now. So, that one wasn't coming out. Now, this is where the fun begins. Now I get to drill that out in a spot where you can't even really get into. Not my best day, that's for sure. Okay. Well, let's just deal with it. Well, that was frustrating enough that I ended up having to take a few minutes to collect my thoughts, and when I got back to it, after coming up with this idea, I forgot to put my microphone on, so now I'm doing a voiceover. And what you see me doing now is I'm using just a cold chisel with a hammer, an old trick that I learned from my grandfather. I'm going in the direction of removal. So I'm just lightly tapping the head of the screw, and you'll see here that I actually ended up succeeding. Took me a little bit of tries, but what the trick is to this is just don't hit it too hard, and make sure that your cold chisel is really sharp. The other thing I've noticed is apparently my camera placement is not the greatest, because all you see is the back of my head. Oh, there it is. Pulled it out. So there you have it. If you decide that you're going to give up and you're going to try and drill out a screw in a spot like that, give that trick a little try, because you know what? It saved me a pile of effort and a pile of work. And I could have potentially made a mistake and drilled it sideways and made the block all messed up. So yeah, give it a try. It worked in this time. Shortly after that, I was able to pull the stator and everything was okay. It went well. Everything worked out in my favor. Didn't have to pull the engine out, even though that screw was stripped. So let's move on to the next step. So here we have the old stator, and in this nice box we should have the new stator. Actually, it is quite a nice box actually. And some connectors. So, that makes me a little bit curious. Why would we have connectors? Shouldn't they already be on there? And they are. Well, that's good. So these, I'm curious now. These must be, you know what they are? That's good. Because these connectors are the chassis side. That's actually kind of convenient, because if you were watching my previous episode where I also checked the stator on the Rhino, the one side on the one of the connectors on the chassis side was bad. It was crispy. So this is what the new stator looks like. Looks like we have a very similar wire code. Because sometimes they change the wire code, because some of these stators will actually be universal. They'll fit different machines. But this one here happens to look like the same wire code, which is awesome. That's good. So now all we're going to do is I'm going to give this, of course, if you've ever seen my channel before, I'm going to give this a little bit of dielectric grease. And I'm going to go reinstall this stator. I thought for sure there was going to be a lot more to do than just that. So I need to find some hardware for the pickup, and yeah, look at this, really nice. I'm impressed. Quite a bit less glue, probably a good thing. Okay, so new stator going in, and as you can imagine guys, the installation of this is basically going to be the reverse of, you know, disassembly. So there's not too many things different. I'm going to start by putting these through with the grommet. I'm going to secure the stator in place, secure the pickup in place, put the plate back to protect the wires. The only thing I'm going to be doing differently during the reassembly, and I think it was already done from the factory, is these bolts holding the stator in place. I'm going to put just a drop of blue Loctite or thread locker, doesn't matter which brand. Not necessarily on the pickup, because those, as you can tell, they were in there really tight, nice and tight. But for sure, I don't want the stator getting loose and contacting the rotor. So let's just let's get it installed, and we'll see if she fires when we're done. So it's all back together, and I figured before we go too far, we may as well check to see if we have spark, because we have enough together now. We have it all plugged in into our nice connectors here, and we can see if in fact that was the issue before we go ahead and put all of the nice pipe back in place and the rest of that stuff. So, before I go too far here, if you notice, the wires on here now are much longer. And normally, the plug was down here. Like it's easily 3 to 4 inches longer. Now normally, you would say that's really good. You know, like it's easier to gain access to plugs. This is probably the only time I'm ever going to say it, but when it comes to the installation of the actual stator, it was kind of difficult, because there was more wire than I expected, and you had to fish it through and make sure that that plate in the back, if I turn the light on, the plate in the back that we had an issue with removing, it's protecting the wires from being, you know, tampered with or hit with the stator. And the other thing that's different on this one is the pickup coil, or the pickup sensor. The wires are on the bottom, whereas the original one, they came straight from the top. So I had to, luckily, and it worked out, but I was able to stuff the wire behind that so that while everything's rotating, nothing is going to be contacting. But anyways, long spiel for saying that the wires are longer than normal, which is not a bad thing, but it just, be aware when you're installing it, you just have to reroute a few things. Not a huge deal. Actually, I think now it's going to be more beneficial than ever, because if we ever have to test it again, we don't have to be down below in the hole there. So I've plugged in our spark tester. It's over here. I took the bar out of the clutch, The belt is not installed either. None of the plugs are in. However, we should be able to see if we have spark. Cross our fingers. Oh yes, there is plenty of spark. Look at this beautiful spark. So, let's put it all back together and have a listen. Before I try firing it up, there's one thing I want to deal with, and I mentioned it last video, is this starter relay. Now, this is not actually the OEM starter relay. This is the OEM starter relay. I actually kept it. Not quite sure why. I think I wanted to do some testing or something on it. Never got to it. Here it is. And while I was ordering the Stator from RM Stator, they actually have components like that. So this one here, I picked it up. I think it was like 35 bucks or something like that, 40 bucks. It wasn't expensive. And it's going to be OEM style. So we're going to replace it right now. I'm not going to need these no more. You did your job though, because I mean, I didn't have to pull this over by hand. So let's open up the new box. See what the other one looks like. Just like that. Looks fancy. Actually, it even comes with the fuses, it looks like. Yeah, it's got some fuses in here. And one thing I do have to transfer over though, and I'm happy I've kept them, is the old bolts. Oh, and guys, I'm just going to remind you to be careful if you don't... I didn't disconnect the battery, clearly. So you need to remember that these are hot. If you're going to do this, make sure you don't touch them together, because they will arc and it will try and start. And click. Put the covers back on this. All right, now we can try it. So let's do this. Full choke, kill switch is up, let's see if she fires. It runs, guys. That's amazing. Now I have to turn on my fan because it's really bad in here. And just like that, guys, my Venture is up and running again. I am super happy because I really thought it was going to be much more difficult than the way it was there. I thought I was going to have to pull the motor to get to the Stator originally because I didn't have the book in front of me, but it was actually not that bad. And it runs great again. So we don't have any snow on the ground yet, but you can bet that when we do, I'll be taking it out for a ride. And that's going to do it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all your views. And if you guys do like the video, don't forget to maybe give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And make sure you have an awesome day. Thank you so much. See you guys next video.